This is Coder Radio, episode 575 for June 18th, 2024. Hello, friend. Welcome into Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and the business of software development and the world of technology. My name is Chris, and joining over there, it's our host. He's probably got a few keyboards and a microphone. Hello, Mike.
I do. That's very accurate. They're both launch keyboards, though.
Oh, yeah. I got one of the mini ones now. You know, the little guy?
How do you like the little guy?
Not bad. I think there's like something inside there rattling around, though.
Oh, no. Now, the mini has no hub, right?
No. I feel like I want to open it up, though. Feels like a good excuse to open her up.
Yeah, well, they have I think, aren't there docs on, like, GitHub?
Yeah. That's just...
Yeah. They sent me they sent me a review unit of one of the other ones. It wasn't the gigantic, it was the mini. It must have been. But it was like, it must have been Emma's because it was pink. But it was, I liked it, but I really use the hub every day. So I stuck with my two regular, whatever they call the
gotta have the hub.
I gotta have the hub. Well, especially because I'm running Mac, and USB-A, I don't care. It's 2024, still useful.
Yep.
Still need it.
There's never enough. Plus, you don't have to go hunting for it. It's just right
there. Well, and I
it's
haven't found a mouse that I find superior to my old ass Razer Mamba. Not the new Mambas, which I don't know why anybody needs a mouse that requires independent software to run. I just not super keen on that. Yeah, and you can use it wirelessly, but it's the old kind of wireless where it has a USB-A dongle.
That's the way I like it. Works a little better.
So I just plug it in. Yeah, I don't Bluetooth. I've had to do a lot of we've over the years. You've heard me. What's the correct word? Bitch and moan about Bluetooth LE and how it's like not really supported everywhere and a lot of interference. Really kind of shoddy.
I don't mind using the Bluetooth temporarily for something like, I need to use this mouse today with this computer.
Well, if I'm on the road, right, I'll use like a Bluetooth.
Yeah. But otherwise, I just find the old RF adapter just works a heck of a lot better. And I got to say the Logitech stuff's been pretty solid in that regard. But if I'm going to go wired, I want a little hubskis right there on the keyboard. That's just how I roll.
Take us on a crazy detour?
Yeah, okay.
So, crazy detour. Speaking of old technology, I saw, and I had an opportunity to plug in an old Sega Genesis into an old Zenith. Now, there's an age check right there. Do you know what Zenith was? Who they were? Yeah,
you're talking a CRT television, yeah.
It looks so much better than it's just
I know it.
Gorgeous.
I know it. A couple of years ago, I got myself a used CRT for my Super Nintendo, and it's better.
It's just better. It just is. No matter what jickery-pokery they try to do to make it look good on these flat screens or LCDs or LEDs.
It's just naturally the way the game was designed to be displayed on that screen.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so good. And also zero latency.
There you go.
All right, so this is going to be an episode where your coder program told you about this a while ago.
We're just bragging.
So if you're a regular listener, it's this weird thing. We have a real problem on the show. And it is, I'm going to reveal it right now, your coder program calls stuff like a year or two ahead of time, and then by the time the regular tech press catches up, it's old news to listeners of the show, so we can't really talk about it, because we've already talked about it. And that is absolutely happening right now today, because we have data that backs up something we've been speculating about on this show for a year or more. And Bamboo HR surveyed more than 1,500 employees, a third of whom work in HR departments, and their findings suggested that indeed, as we speculated on the program, the return to office movement was actually a poorly executed way to get people to resign. A quarter of executives and a fifth of HR professionals hoped RTO mandates would result in staff leaving companies. A full 42% of employees who responded to the survey said they had shown up solely to be seen by bosses and managers. They didn't do anything else productive. Bosses just wanted butts in seats. Didn't really matter if they got any more or any less work done. The end result has been a growth of a different type of office culture, one that's even more performative, suspicious, and divisive than before the COVID pandemic, the study concludes. Not our words. This is Bamboo HR. Away from the office, employees now also feel like these are the remote employees, feel they need to demonstrate presence by being hyper-available and never going offline. The so-called green status effect, the data suggests. And I wonder if our listeners who work remote have been feeling that, because that kind of works. That makes sense to me.
So this is super weird, right? Like you and I were like, of course, these return to office mandates are meant to get people to resign in part, right? Maybe not in total, but in part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this got it was kind of right back, 2 years ago when we were talking about that? That got dismissed as such a crazy, you guys are nuts idea. But yeah, what else would it be, right? I mean, what small business wants to pay rent ever? Right? Every time I lease an office, I constantly get yelled at by my CTO because it never works out. Right? The office space, it's just when you're small, unless there's a good reason to have it, given today's tools, if you're a tech company, you can get away without it.
Yeah. So they looked at some of the like productivity aspects of it. I'll have a link to this study and the register's coverage of it. They say, our findings do not support the argument that managers impose mandates because they believe RTO increases firm values. Further, our study finds a significant decline in employee job satisfaction. However, we do not find significant changes in firm performance in terms of profitability and stock market valuation after the RTO mandates.
Yep.
So this is really, I don't know, I guess I put it on here not to be like, hey, look at us, we got it right, but to be like, hey, look, there's actual data. Now, granted, it's Bamboo HR doing a survey, a third of which were HR employees, but this is their domain. This is what I've been a customer before. This is what they do, is this area.
This is basically more about managers being little Napoleons than anything else. So,
among the S&P 500 stock market index, 137 businesses told their hired hands to haul their butts back on site last year. And this was the same sample group the researchers used at the University of Pittsburgh. So there's also data in here from the University of Pittsburgh. And they looked at the S&P 500 and they looked at the businesses that did mandates and they did surveys there too. That's pretty clever. Wow. And that's an interesting stat. Of the S&P 500, 137 did return to office mandates. The other thing that happens, just really one last thought on the return to office stuff and remote work. Something we don't talk about, but I hear about a lot is, and I've seen it, you're working for a company that's a remote first company. Just about everybody's remote, or a big portion of them are remote. And then that company gets acquired by a larger company who has an on-site culture. And then they have to like come to some sort of middle ground between 100% remote and 100% on-site. And That seems to be really rough still.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that I'm becoming a zealot, but I gotta be honest. Like, especially with like kids, and I have my one guy who has an older person, his mother he takes care of. The full remote way, I think you get better productivity because people tend to, at least most people, right? People who aren't like working 2 fake remote jobs or something crazy like that, tend to be like, okay, I have to go pick my kid up at 2:30 or whatever time school gets out. And I'm going to be offline for like 40 minutes, but then I'm going to make it up. And I think they actually make it up. And I think, to be honest, I think they make it up and then some. I know I do. Like I'll work all weekend, right? Seriously. My youngest, my son just got into Digimon. And by the way, Digimon, copyright crap. That show is very annoying. That was my point. They play the theme song every time somebody digivolves.
Oh,
and
how exciting.
And I didn't realize just how shameless of a Pokemon ripoff it is. It's I'm kind of impressed they got away with that. And there's like many shows and a card game and a string of video games. My point being, he can watch Digimon for like an hour on a Sunday, and I'm like, okay, great, that's 2 Pomodoros I can get in, right? And
yeah,
with that focused time, as long as I don't hear the stupid jingle every time they digivolve, I'm fine. I get a lot done.
Yes, as my kids have gotten older, I've had more and more availability on the weekends. It's been interesting because they're less and less interested in hanging out with dad. My son's 15 now, and he's got buddies that he wants to hang out with on Saturday. And so there's just less time they're hanging out with dad. And it's like, well, I guess I could work. You know me. Of course, that's where I go.
I didn't put my boy into camp or really much this summer, only kind of in July. And he's like, hey, so am I going to go to like Code Whiz? Because it's, it's different during the summer. I'm like, do you want to? He's like, yeah, I think I do. He wants to get out there. I'm like, all right, well,
yeah.
Talk to me next week. We'll do it after the 4th of July because they charge crazy rates for the holidays. So
one last note, I guess. So one last note. There's just one other element. We've mentioned it before, but it just seems like it hasn't slowed down. And Wells Fargo is the latest big example. This came out last week, just after we recorded. Actually, just between episodes, 5 days ago. Wells Fargo has fired more than a dozen employees for faking remote work. Essentially, they used some kind of detection software to figure out that these people were using like mouse wigglers and faking. They say they were simulating keyboard and mouse activity, quote, creating an impression of active work. And they somehow were able to detect that. And they said, we hold employees to the highest standard and do not tolerate unethical behavior. So they let those people go.
So they're like hardcore World of Warcraft gold farmers from back in the day where they're multi-boxing their mouse to play 4 accounts at once.
Yes. Okay. If anybody out there is doing this, tell us how it's working for you. I won't shame you.
You can write it on it. You can just send us a pay spin. You don't have to.
Yep. Yeah, they say quiet vacationing is the new trend right now, where people quietly take vacation in the remote work. I want to know, is that you? Coder.show/boost. The Coder program is an acquired taste, and if it fits your taste, you might just be the right person for this message. The audience, you, are really the only ones qualified to judge the value of the show. Not a sponsor, probably not even really Mike or myself. I mean, we could take our best guess, but it's really up to you. So when you boost, you return some of the value you've gotten from the show back to us. Keeps an independent show like this little show going. Because there's no VC behind us, there's no big company, but it does require structure, organization, production, things that come at a cost, including time. So that's the idea behind the boost, is a way to contribute a little bit back to the show, keep things going, get your message on here. So you might be wondering, okay, Chris, I get that part. I get it, but why sats? Well, I know it's not always easy. It's a bit of a hassle, although I try to link to the top 2 easiest ways to do it in the show notes. It's about technology, strategy, and ownership. The tech underlying the boost allows for fractions of a penny to be sent. It allows for amounts to be instantly split among everyone involved in the production, including external participants. It loops the podcast app creator in so they have an ongoing realistic path to monetization because they get a small little split. That keeps the ecosystem healthy. Podcasting's never had anything like that. There's also a strategy behind it. Coder doesn't have to follow the industry line and narrative. That is costing us sponsors right now. And I can say that absolute confidence. You combine it, of course, with the constricted ad market, but your Coder program has been forced into 2 choices. Pivot the content to pro-industry narratives that include no political commentary, our AI commentary toes the line, that kind of stuff. And I'm serious about this. Or we lean into audience support, and we make the audience our biggest customer. And there's also no middleman with this technology. The boosts are sent peer-to-peer. There's no PayPal who can cut us off. But when you zoom out, it's not even really about that. Censorship resistance important. But when you zoom out, you look at a business over 10, 20, and 30 years, removing these middlemen just reduces failure, and it saves the business money, and it gives us flexibility and optionality. And then we own the entire stack. There's an ownership element. Everything is self-hosted. The whole thing end-to-end comes from you, comes here. It's all we self-host everything for the whole network. I don't have to ask a business to have permission to get those funds. I don't have to wait 3 days to get access to those funds. You can't fully self-host any other system like this. And the trend is our friend. Held over long-term, 4 years or more, no one loses money on Bitcoin, ever, historically. The price tends to appreciate over a longer period of time. Now, as a business, I can leverage that. I could sell today as it comes in, depending on what our needs are. But if we can keep our operating expenses managed well, if we can hold on to the Bitcoin that gets boosted in, then we can cash it out at a later point that gives us more flexibility and optionality, and it means your boosts go to work for years for Jupiter Broadcasting. We can leverage that down the road. We can have it on the balance sheet. We can sell it, whatever the business needs to do. We have a lot more flexibility there. But it also gets your message on the show. There's a way to attach a message directly to it that comes into a system, lives in a database, has an API we can build tooling around and pull that into our show notes. So when you boost above 2,000 sats, we read your message on the air to give a little value back to you. That's why I encourage you to boost. It's a lot of fun. It's, as a podcaster who's been doing this for, nearly 17, 18 years, I've never written into another podcast until Boost came along. I'd been listening to them for forever. I'd never participated until boosting came along, and I tried that, and I loved it. You can get started. It'll take you right to the Fountain FM show page for Coder, where you can boost from the web or using a client. You don't actually have to switch apps anymore. You just need a Lightning-capable app like Strike or Cash App, and you can boost using your web client. Or you can try an app, ride the revolution, try out the new features. You can get started at coder.show/boost. All right, well, we've talked about DHH on the show before, of course, the founder of Ruby on Rails and 37 Signals, and right? The 37 Signals is his company, is that right?
Yeah, but him and his partner renamed it to Basecamp.
Ah, thank you. And he's been on a journey that we've talked about a little bit from the Mac, and he first tried Windows, and he liked it a lot, I think, but it didn't like achieve the bar of replacing Mac OS and TextMate and all of that stuff. Then he got a wild hair, and he got himself a Framebook. I don't know if somebody suggested or what. Got a Framebook 13, got Ubuntu on there, and started building his own custom Linux environment. And he's definitely at peak new relationship energy with Linux right now. He's created Omakub, which is this Ubuntu script that sets up an environment that is very much like something you would give to like a new employee at Basecamp/37 Signals, something that's his personal environment. Very much of there is some I'm new to Linux and I'm here to solve all of its problems energy there, but I think also some fresh ideas that are worth looking at. And Mike, I've been dying to talk to you about this because I'd love to know your perspective on this, because I think we've talked a long time on this show about when is the next wave of developers going to adopt Linux.
Yeah. I mean, I've been following this. I listened to what I believe to be the most recent Linux Unplugged, although my feed could be behind where you guys talked about this quite a bit, which is very good discussion. I like this. I mean, I'm a little... It's definitely been a journey, right? Because I've tried this kind of thing too. And one, Apple's App Store policies might be the best thing that ever happened to desktop Linux ever. Because let's all be honest about why this is happening, at least in his case. Because
he's very dissatisfied with the direction of Apple in general. I think you said, too, one of the things that was really the straw that broke the camel's back was them for a hot minute pulling web apps in the EU.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
So he definitely like coming in hot, right? It's funny because a couple months ago he was exploring Windows, and then Microsoft immediately releases that relay stuff, which I agree is super creepy and bad. And no. See, I wonder, because he's very obviously a laptop user, right? Where he's going to land on the hardware. I know he's really tight with like the framework people. There's a lot of love there. And he's using a framework right now. But I just, I guess I wonder like how much of the upgradability and customizability outweighs just the niceness of like Mac laptops for him.
Yeah, especially when you're not super price sensitive, right? I think he's got quite an expensive setup in general.
Right, and he's super rich, right? So it seems like for me that's always been the challenge. Like, but the battery life, but the hardware quality.
He is looking at it from somebody who's been a Mac user for 20 years straight, and the Framework 13-inch laptop is the opposite end of the spectrum of the MacBook. And my sense is he's enjoying that contrast. Your argument is he might not forever.
He might not forever, right? Like, is he going to? I mean, I'm just riffing off my own experience, right? Is he going to take the framework, to a conference and have some weird issue, trying to do a presentation and be like, screw it, because that's, or video conferencing. I've had a couple shoddy audio. We've done shows when I was on Linux where I had a couple shoddy audio issues. So, I mean, I don't mean to bash Linux. I think it is coming along quite well. I'm kind of looking to dip back in and try it again when Cosmic comes out. We got a lot of flack years ago for this, right? I was like, we need a company to really have like a unified vision for what this should all be like, because there's too much. I don't know. There's too much just weird running around. You know what I mean? Like you get an application, and all of a sudden you have to install like all of GNOME if you're using KDE because it's a GNOME app, right? Or same thing for KDE.
So I have two things I want to touch on. Number one, I think you're onto something here, and I want to explore that further. But before I get to that, I think it's been fascinating to see him realize that a monoculture at their company where everybody's on Macs has given them blind spots to stuff that could have easily been fixed had anybody been running Windows or Linux.
Well, that's interesting.
And DHH has talked about this. Yeah, like just little tweaks to the UI or design elements that they didn't realize weren't rendering properly on non-Apple systems. And they're like, oh, crap. So we've had a blind spot here. And now this is something we need to fix at a company culture. We want to now institutionalize multi-platforms because that represents our customers. Something like damn near 70% or high 60s are Windows users for their company. And there was just small little UI stuff they'd never even noticed before.
Of their customer base.
Yes, right. Yeah, of their customer base. That was impacted by these small little UI things because they were optimizing for the Mac experience. And they realized that monoculture gave them a blind spot. And I just think it's fascinating that somebody in a position of leadership tries a new OS and then discovers a blind spot about their entire company. That's a huge thing that just happened. But aside from that, I am concerned, and I think this is kind of where you were going. Ultimately, this seems like he's on a path to anger and frustration.
Interesting.
Right? Because it either or you go the cosmic route and you build out an internal team that just builds and maintains this.
Well, I don't think he's going to devote company resources to that.
No, first he's going to go the open source route and try to get the community to participate, which he's already doing.
Right.
But that just will not scale to keep up with the pace of Ubuntu and change and innovation in the free desktop space. GNOME, for example, still doesn't have a complete API for extensions. Some of the stuff they're doing depends on GNOME extensions. Yeah. You know how that's going to go, right? Some of this stuff depends on the specific version of Ubuntu for compatibility to run. If the version of Ubuntu gets a major update, it might break that compatibility because we're not taking advantage of things like snaps or flat packs or containers. We're importing repos and downloading stuff and installing it the old school way like it's 1998, baby. This all leads to pain and suffering for the user, for the creator. Ultimately, it leads to frustration and burnout. And in a way, I almost kind of wish he hadn't gone to Omakub level. Right? If he hadn't gone full Omakub and just was super happy to have something internally and have a few folks internally use it, and that was the scope, like that's okay, achievable. Still don't think it's the way to go. Yeah, actually, to be honest with you, but probably sustainable. Once it becomes a public project with all these users and all these different machines and all these expectations, and you've built it on a sandcastle, I mean, just GTK versions change. GNOME major versions change. Ubuntu kernel versions change. Library versions change. glibc changes, right? These things are going to happen in a year or two. And I don't think that this is going to be a very good experience long term. And there are technologies and solutions to do this sustainably and do it right today, but they're all kind of new. And there's nothing in the current Linux ecosystem that channels you to these new way of doing things. It could be, again, snaps, Flatpak. I'll throw Nix in here. I'll throw OS tree. There's ways to deliver software now that solve these problems. Containers, I mean, hell, even just Docker.
It's true. Yeah.
That solve these problems. And none of those were used in this project. Omakub, while beautiful, and presents a desktop that is designed for developers, not designed for these mythical new users that seem to never materialize, but designed for developers who could be switching today. It's a great idea. It's what Cosmic needs to be. That's all good, but ultimately it's built on a sandcastle, I worry. And pain and frustration ultimately is where this leads, which I kind of think is where you were going with this. Is there's just been a lot of takes at this.
Yeah, there's been a lot of shots at this. I mean, although it's funny that it hasn't happened yet, right? It really...
It's maybe waves, you know?
Yeah.
Like the AI features really seem to be turning some people off. I saw Nextcloud ran a poll on social media this last week, yesterday, sometime. And they asked people, like, are you excited? Are you okay with the open source stuff? Are you just completely sick and tired of AI? Do you have no opinion? 81% at the time I saw the poll voted they were sick and tired of hearing about AI.
Right.
And it was turning them off of products. And you see DHH, right, with Windows Recall, like you mentioned, and just trying to find an alternative to Windows. It's like we're at another wave here where perhaps another tranche of users are fed up. If you go look on WeaponX, like I did this search last week, if you go just on WeaponX and search for desktop Linux, last week, at least when I did the search, it's Everybody's talking about how they're fed up with Windows or Mac OS, and they're looking for maybe I should try Linux advice stuff. It's crazy. I've never seen this before. DHA said on X, I'm telling you we're reaching a breaking point. Linux is the release valve. AI is great, but plenty of people don't want it jammed into every orifice of their OS. With corporate options, you're going to get that whether you like it or not. We'll see if these people can survive outside the Apple ecosystem. There's no built-in phone syncing. There's no note syncing built in.
I don't even think that's going to be like the thing that gets them, right?
No?
Okay, so like I have my Dev One that I use as my travel machine. And like a thing that I cannot understand how to fix. Now I know the Dev One has kind of a weird screen. It's a beautiful screen, but some applications the font renders really small. And if I pump it up, it looks blurry, right?
Yeah.
And there's no good way for me to fix that, which you're like, oh, well, suck it up. But one of those applications is my terminal. So, and the other is my, JetBrains, right? All my RubyMine and PyCharm and CLion.
I think what you're onto is to have a great text experience on Linux, you got to be really particular about your screen resolution. Because what you're running into, right, is some stuff isn't properly doubling.
No, let's look this up. So the HP Dev One, because I think it's just the screen is too high DPI.
Yeah, and so most apps, probably like your modern, Qt, and GTK apps, they can double. They can, right. Scale up. But older apps that use older toolkits can't. They don't have support for it.
Oh, that's right. They don't sell this anymore. Okay, let me see. Do they still have
But I think you're right. I think mine's 4K. Mine's 4K, so yours must be 4K.
Yeah, they're the same. They're the same machine.
Yeah.
Right, because there was only ever one model.
I'm almost positive it's 4K.
But, okay, I love the little guy because, one, it didn't cost me a lot of money. Right, so if something happens, great. I have POP on it, which, because of course it came with POP. So it's got an encrypted drive, which I know Mac does too, right? And the keyboard's good, but the fact that, like, I'm squinting I work in text all day. There's a lot of things I would give up before clearer font rendering. I'll put it that way.
The Framework 13 does not have this issue.
Why is that?
It's the resolution it ships.
What is it, just 19 by...
No, it's not, I can't remember, but it's also, it's more of a square, aspect ratio as well. So not only is it not 16 by 9, but it's more square, and it's not a 4K screen, so it's not trying to do the text doubling. Okay,
but my point is, right, I'm thinking about, like, because I've done this, other people have tried, the developers who are effectively web or back-end developers not doing iOS, right, is what I'm talking about here, who are going to come over and try Linux. I got to tell you, when you go to the Apple Store, a thing you never have to think about is, geez, if I buy this model of MacBook Pro, is my terminal going to look kind of blurry? It never occurs to you, right? And then especially because a Linux laptop you're going to buy mail order, right? You're going to buy online. So it's not like you get to, get your little paws on it and take a look at that at Best Buy. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of heartbreak here.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm trying to say is I co-sign what you're saying, and what it means is, practically speaking, if these expats don't pick the right hardware when they first get started, where they know nothing, where they know absolutely the least, have the least context, have the least understanding, if they don't pick absolutely the right hardware combination of monitor and video card and Wi-Fi and motherboard and all of this stuff, they're going to have a bad experience.
I remember when I first, after my experimentations in college with Linux, when we first started doing the show, I decided, solidarity with the network. I'd do like a month or two on Ubuntu. Little did I know how much NVIDIA would want to kick me in the ass every time that card updated. Like, who would have thought of that? I mean, a more experienced Linux user would have. This
is why, I'm not a framework owner, and I probably should try one. But you see, this is where I do think somebody like DHH coming out and saying, this is the path. I'm beating this path down. I have my own machete. You can follow it, and you can guarantee some level of success. Because what he's telling you is, if you get this Framework 13 with this combination of hardware, you're going to at least get this kind of baseline experience. And we do need more of that. And if hopefully vendors like System 76 and others can kind of get in Tuxedo, can maybe get in this position of developers, if you're looking for an easy onboarding, here it is. What the Dev 1 could have been. Maybe like something like the Lenovo 14, which is going to be ARM-based. Something, 14-inch screen, or like they're going to have a 15-inch OLED. Something, that's got a nice screen, good font rendering, good Linux compatibility. So you just have a good experience when you buy it. I mean, that's what the Sputnik was trying to do as well. But again, they went with the 4K screen stuff. You just don't really need it on a small screen. But everybody wanted to be Apple and have Retina resolution.
But it doesn't matter, right? Like you mentioned System 76. Some of my old System 76 laptops I've used, I think some of them were like 1920 by 1080, but they actually render the fonts better because they're...
Yeah, my home monitor right now is like 1900 by 1200 or something.
Right, something like that, yeah.
It's sub 2K, and the fonts look so good, dude. What I did, I took the fonts that DHH put in Omakub, and I just went and installed them on my own system and switched all my default fonts over, and they look great.
You're like, thanks, bro.
The man's got taste, I'll give it to him.
No, but if DHH can drum up enough attention, I think it would be interesting to see. I mean, Framework has jumped right on this, right? They're like, hey, bro.
Yeah, today as we record, by the way, they announced a RISC-V board.
RISC-V.
In the works.
Do you know who would be super happy about that?
Who?
Our great friend Chris Latner, the creator of Swift.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was, I don't know if he is now, but he did found a RISC-V startup.
Oh! Yeah, I could see. It's interesting, though, the timing of this, right? With ARM just taking over, these Snapdragon X Elite SoCs coming out.
It does feel like a very strange time to go RISC-V, right? Because it looks like ARM is going to probably win that fight.
Yeah, and ARM has been able to catch the AI hype wave. And RISC-V seems like it's just kind of being left out. Even though I actually think they're pitching it as an AI processor. They just have AI in the name, though. I don't know what makes it an AI processor. But they're pitching it as one. Okay, while we're talking about AI stuff, I cannot believe this story, and yet I can totally believe the story. You know one of those?
Mm.
Sam Altman says the company might switch to a for-profit corporation like Anthropic or XAI. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman recently told some shareholders that the artificial intelligence developer is considering changing its governance structure to a for-profit business that OpenAI's nonprofit board would not control. This is according to a person who heard the comments. One scenario Altman said is that the board is considering a for-profit benefit corporation, which rivals such those as Anthropic and XAI are using. So this is coming for the information. So the complete story, you have to pay what is it, $250 a year to get access to?
Yeah, I canceled my sub, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the gist of it. Reuters also said the restructuring discussions are fluid at the moment. Altman and his fellow directors could ultimately decide to take a different approach. So we don't actually know. In response to queries from Reuters, OpenAI said, quote, "We remain focused on building AI that benefits everyone. The nonprofit is core to our mission and will continue to exist." But that doesn't really seem like a denial. It seems like a non-denial denial.
I don't even understand how this is happening. I mean, yes, I do. JK, this is the most obvious possible outcome, right? Because you know what you need when you can't become profitable?
Investors.
Oh, no. Well, yes, in a way. You needed that juicy IPO.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Well, yeah. Yep. That would do it.
That would do it.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
I was just thinking how funny it is. How OpenAI wasn't even a known name. And now they're, a common name, but Sam's on the board of the federal government's AI safety review. They have regulatory moats in the work. They've really become as if they're one of the big five, even though they're itsy bitsy tiny. Although this would change things, I suppose. And this brings me back to we have to remember that weekend where Sam got fired. You just never really know.
Did he get fired or did he go to the beach?
Yeah. So at this point, there would be nothing open about OpenAI. It should be called closed AI or
okay,
proprietary AI.
Take it easy there, Elon. Take it easy with the closed AI.
Oh, is that his thing?
That's his thing.
I hadn't heard that. But but it's true. There's nothing at this point. What would be open about it?
Absolutely nothing. Let's hope we don't get DMCA'd for that. I don't know. I mean, I think he's doing a great job of making himself tons of money.
Yeah, well, he will. No doubt. I'm sure he'll have quite the stake in a new public company. We got to look into these for public benefit companies. This is what Purism calls himself too, is first public benefit. Washington State and California State have these like public good kind of quasi charities. I'm not sure exactly. They look like a real boondoggle. Like just great, man.
Don't think charity is the word you're looking for.
It's just really something.
Jump on that.
What an evolution this whole OpenAI story would take. And it's okay But I'm still not convinced they've got the best tech. I'm still not convinced. We shall see, I suppose. What we realized, and you and I talked about it briefly, post WWDC, is there's very little public trust in OpenAI. There was a very negative reaction to Apple spending 2 minutes in WWDC talking about OpenAI.
Oh, yeah.
They've already burned the public trust. So why not just complete the act and get a new name, Become like Xfinity AI. And everybody will love you.
And then Comcast sues you into oblivion. Yes.
You mentioned, of course, Windows recall. So Microsoft is backtracking. They say, quote, "We've heard the clear signal that we can make it easier for people to choose to enable recall on their Copilot Plus PCs and improve privacy and security safeguards. So it's going to be delayed and off by default, which is the obvious. Anything this resource intensive should be off by default."
Yeah, I think this recall stuff is something that maybe is a cool tech demo, but actually I thought the demo was actually pretty lousy. I think this is just a blind alley Microsoft went down.
Yeah, boy, that landed like a lead balloon. Not quite like Google level failure, right? Because this didn't actually ship, where Google's embarrassing AI stuff is actually shipped to the public.
What are you talking about? There were many African-American Nazis. Emphasis on both African and American, because that makes sense.
Yeah, and lots of glue on pizza. I don't know, man. I'm impressed that they blew it.
Don't repeat the glue on pizza thing. Remember, there were kids dumb enough to actually eat Tide Pods.
Were they? Now I don't know. Now I just...
You don't think that was real? That was fake news?
I don't know. Problem is, if I ask the AI and they tell me it wasn't fake news...
It'll tell you how to season the Tide Pods.
407 boosts to go.
All right, we got some boosts this week, and Sam Squanch got a heck of a deal for our baller booster position.
Hey, Rich Lobster!
He sent in a row of McDucks, 22,222 sats.
This old duck still got it.
As someone who was working on some pretty cutting-edge systems engineering for years now, and working on integrating LLMs into anything not nailed down for my employer, the level of skill required to do this stuff, not to mention the quality of popular tools out there, is in the gutter, in my opinion. Yeah, this is a weird gap where it takes 10% to do the initial integration, and then 90% of the work is making it actually good and useful and relevant. Don't you think?
Yeah.
And that's where the skill lies. Integrating it has become so easy and so quick and so approachable that somebody who knows how to stand up a Docker container can do that part. But then actually making it useful, relevant, and give you accurate information, and then building that into a useful interface that is actually valuable to the customer or end user is seemingly near impossible at this point. Nobody's done it yet. We'll see. We'll see how iOS 18 looks when it ships. But I suspect all of this is going to get me to really just double down on my Android usage. And then when I do have an AI, it'll probably be some self-hosted LLM. But I don't know. Maybe something will be valuable, and I'll trust it, and I'll change my opinion.
There you go.
Corzan comes in with a row of ducks, 2,222 sats. He says the biggest WWC announcement was that iPadOS now has a calculator, and I don't need to install third-party ones that bombard me with ads. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we need to say about WWDC. Okay.
He says I'm just trying to calculate how much I'm going to spend on diapers this month.
That's right. And also the ads they're serving, you should know. If I just realized I spent $300 on diapers, I definitely don't want to buy. Although maybe I do need to buy more, depending on how your child's constitution is digestive wise.
You know, it is interesting. You can tell Apple's really been all hands on deck with the AI stuff, because what we really got that sticks out in my mind with iOS 18 would be remote control, remote support. That's actually kind of useful. And the ability to move icons arbitrarily on the home screen, which Android users are laughing at. And then the ability to theme the overall look of the OS, which is something you could do
already.
And if you got, like, back in the day, if you had some of the modded App Store stuff.
Also,
already,
if you know any teenagers, they all have apps that do this.
Yeah. And there's, like, all these ways to do it with shortcuts and stuff that, boggle my mind.
Yeah.
So that's the big things you get in iOS 18. The rest is all the AI stuff.
So it's nothing, right? Ooh.
So I guess in that context, a calculator is something.
It landed like the Goliath it was.
Scott comes in with nearly a Jar Jar boost.
Use a boost!
5,222 sats. I still can't decide if the rebranding of AI to be an acronym for Apple Intelligence is genius or cheap marketing. I still don't see how much this all helps them because I don't know who would buy a new iPhone just because it has AI bells and whistles. Maybe I'll be proved wrong, though.
No, people will buy a new iPhone because they're on the automatic monthly renewal thing with their carrier, and the carrier's going to be like, hey, it's been like 18 months, you need a new iPhone.
We are in that cycle. You know,
Right.
my wife's got an iPhone like 11, and it's clearly showing its age with the battery. I've got an iPhone 14. It's not making it through the day anymore.
Yeah, that's where I am. Really, the biggest, if they wanted to impress me, they could be like 2-day battery life.
So I was 100% where Scott is with this. And then my father-in-law stopped by and sat down. And he's a businessman, and he follows like stocks and the market and stuff. And he's probably an Apple stockholder. And he asked me, what do I think about Apple's AI stuff? You know, and I thought, wow, okay, well, I'll go into my spiel. And he told me that if the Siri improvements are even 20 to 30% what Apple's claiming, that a bunch of people at his company are going to upgrade just because they need Siri to be more helpful for like reminders and scheduling and sending messages because they work in construction. And this is a common way they interface with the phone and stuff and send each other messages is through the voice stuff. And he says if Siri can get better and more accurate and, you know, more useful, then he's going to upgrade everybody's phones because of Siri. Siri.
Find that amazing.
I never would have
thought that.
Wow. DPG at PTC comes in with Jar Jar Boost 5,000 sats.
Use a boost.
Did Apple launch the Vision Pro because the world was locked down and then they just thought it would stay that way?
Actually, I kind of think so, yeah.
Today, as we record, a story comes out that Apple has suspended production on the next Apple Vision Pro, and they're retooling for a cheaper version, which they are aiming to have out at the end of 2025. Did you see that story? It just came out as we started.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Define cheaper.
I don't know. The story didn't say.
Mm.
Sources say, you know, I think, again, this was the information, so I could only glean bits of it. But that's the route they should take. But waiting until 2025, the only way that works is if they keep iterating software on the current Vision Pro and then maybe drop the price in a year. But if it's the same price until 2025, I just think the sales are going to die.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at that Meta Quest 3 with lust.
Right. But stick with me. But what if? This isn't going to happen, but what if they drop the price to $1,500?
Okay, why are you worth more than 3 times the Meta Quest 3, which has an amazing software ecosystem?
Yeah, you'd really have to be all in on macOS, I think, because then you'd have like the monitor pass-through stuff.
Okay, so you're selling to the ATP guys, which hey, that is a great customer base. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. But at $1,500, it feels like a bargain. At $3,500, it feels like an arbitrage.
Like if I was to do like any kind of like time or effort investment in any kind of AR or VR development, I don't know why it wouldn't be Quest at this point. It seems to be the dominant platform.
You mean Horizon OS, Mike? Horizon OS now. Yeah.
Well, you know.
Torped comes in with 5,150 sats.
Everything's under control.
What ports do you currently use today that you'd like to see move to USB-C form factor? What a great question. You know, what's funny is I've been setting up my home studio, and it's crazy how much stuff is still on A. So this box I'm on has probably 6 USB-A ports and only 2 C ports. And I actually ran out of C ports, and so I had to hook up a USB-C hub, which then had more, gave me 3 more USB-C ports. So I'm pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed by how much stuff is using USB-C. I also got just recently, I'm going to review it on self-hosted, a new Aquara video doorbell. Doesn't tie into Ring, you know, it's all private.
Right.
And very pleasantly surprised that they have like an indoor speaker that you can use to talk to people. It comes with it. USB-C. It's all USB-C now. So it's getting better. I don't know, Mike, you got anything that's on USB-A still? Like we were just talking about how we still use a lot of USB-A ports.
Yeah, but that's because I'm using the old model of this mouse, right? I guess I have a couple things, but not really. I mean, I have enough dongles. It's frankly pornographic here, just dongles everywhere.
I think like the Logitech receivers, I need to get those in USB-C. Those are all my Logitech receivers are all USB-A.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty much living the USB-C lifestyle. Now, I would like somehow everything to move to Thunderbolt correctly.
Never going to happen.
Such a pain in the ass.
I know. Are there Logitech receivers in USB-C? Maybe that's not even a thing.
beats me. I don't use them.
Also, I'd like to see more USB-C thumb drives.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that.
They're around there. You can get them.
Yeah, I know, but like my stash are all USB-A. But
Well, yeah, because our stash is. I have stash that's like the old see-through plastic penny drives that.
yeah,
that
I'm just waiting for them to die.
They're never gonna die.
I know. I got like 16 gigs, 8
Yeah.
gigs, 4 gigs, 32 gigs, 64, and it's like they're just lasting forever. It's true. Oh, hey, look at this. Crashmaster comes in with Bro Ducks. I'm boosting just because this week. I'm not a huge Apple fan, but I do like hearing what they're doing for developers. This WWDC is ignoring the Vision Pro, makes me think that Meta has even more time to get into commercial markets for, quote, head computers. I like to call them face computers, but I agree, Crashmaster.
I call them face huggers.
And like what Mike was just saying is like Meta seems to have the momentum now. And I really think this is one of those spaces that once you try it, you become a believer. And before you try it, it's hard to kind of appreciate the benefits of it. And I would really like to see more people invest in this area because there needs to be more utility and applications for these headsets before people are going to spend the money. I just don't know today if I could really truly recommend it. That's why the Quest pricing is probably the most optimal. You know, you can get in around $350 really. Because I just don't think I could sit here and tell you 9 months now into owning one or whatever it's been that there's enough applications that make it worth it unless you use this thing as one of your primary gaming devices or you're using an app like Immersed on the regular.
Right. Well, gaming is where the Quest excels, right? That's.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
I've had my ass handed to me by Darth Vader a number of times.
I wanted to pull one boost forward since we had a small amount today. Techie Tacky came in with 1, 2, 3, 4 sats. He says, I own an iPhone 11 and I hate it. That's one my wife has. I hate it with a passion. However, it still holds up for my use cases. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Especially if you get the smart battery case that Apple made a while ago, then the thing still has like a day and a half battery life.
Oh, true. I should get one of those. That's not a bad
Yeah.
plan.
It works, which is why I would have replaced it, but it would be for like a sub $400 Android phone. But here's a fun fact. My Samsung, which is an A5 from 2017, which has Lineage on it, had support dropped in April or March. That's what I call an LTS, though, because I was able to use it for years. So my recommendation to folks is buy a mid-range popular phone. You're probably good to go. Motorola, for example, has excellent, close to stock Android feels for a reasonable price. If you're willing to flash an Android OS, if you're a listener out there who's actually willing to do this, then I will kind of take what Tiki Tacky or Tech Tacky recommends here, and I'll pivot. By the way, thank you for the boost. I'll pivot a little bit and say, make it easy on yourself. Get a used Pixel. The Pixel 7's cheap. The Pixel 6, even cheaper, but the 7, with the 8 out, it's a good phone. I have the 7 Pro still. And if you get an unlocked version, through your frickin' Chrome-based web browser, you can install Graphene OS and have a completely Google-free experience and layer on as much Google as you want via the sandbox. All the way up, if you want, to absolutely nothing. And the nice thing about this is Graphene OS still seems to support like the 5. So they have years and years and years of support. So you can get a good price, like around $200, nice camera, good solid screen, well-performing Android device, and put a private OS on there that you then layer up as much as you want. If you're going to do it, go that route. Don't get a Samsung. Don't get a Motorola. Maybe you disagree, but that would be my recommendation. Is get a slightly used Pixel.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody who boosted in. We had 7 boosters, and we stacked 43,272 sats. Not great. Not great. But we'll take it. We do appreciate everybody who boosts in and supports the show in these lean, mean times. I think that's probably one of our lowest, not maybe our lowest, but one of our closest to our lowest performing episodes. So if you'd like to support the show and boost, you can get a new podcast app at podcastapps.com. Fountain FM is going from strength to strength. I got a little sneak peek at what's around the corner, and you're going to like it a lot. So many interesting innovations that are pushing the boundaries coming soon. You can try that and boost the show, or just boost from their website at fountain.fm and search for Coder Radio over there. You'll find us. Also, thank you to our members over there, coder.show/membership. You get an ad-free version of the show. You get the Coderly, okay, so the Coderly is done, and it's ready to go. But there's not like a super positive episode. So I was going to put it out there to the audience. If it's not a super positive Coderly, should we still release it? Should it still go out? Let me know what you think. I mean, I'm going to assume we should do it, but I don't know. We could also hold it. We could not release it, and then we could record a different one at another point that,
Right.
It's all sunshine and sprinkles. I don't know. Let us know what you think. Boost in or send us a message. It's recorded. It's done. It's ready to go. It's edited by Drew. So I think we should do it, but then again, I just don't know. I guess I want to take everybody's temperature on it. So boost in and let us know. Also, don't forget that you can go get everything we talk about, all the links, everything at coder.show. We'll have lots of episodes there, like almost probably 576-ish, somewhere around in that range. Mr. Dominic, is there anywhere you want to send people before we get out of here?
Go to alice.dev, and I do want to share, if you need any kind of Ruby, preferably, or Python, any kind of like integration work done, whether it's Alice oriented or custom, let me know. Going to have some availability.
That's great. That's a nice opportunity. We should put a link in the notes, like for a way for people to get a hold of you or something. Something that's just real easy to click over there. I'll give a shout out to the podcast network. There's lots of great shows over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. We dug into Omakub in Linux Unplugged recently. You can find links to that and more at the website, which is full of stuff, jupiterbroadcasting.com. Thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Coder Radio program. We'll see you right back here next week.